Tradition is the foundation, modernity is the direction. Together, they shape a journey of a meaningful life. Namaskar, and welcome to today's special episode of the Gyan Vihar podcast, where tradition meets innovation. Today, we are honored to be joined by a remarkable leader, a person whose vision is grounded in timeless values, yet whose mindset is boldly future forward. Mr. Kanishk Sharma, our esteemed director, is not just a leader by role, but a mentor by spirit. Welcome, sir.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Anushka. Thank you for this wonderful introduction. You're very generous in the titles, and if we talk about upamas and sangyas in Hindi that you've given me, I don't know if I deserve all of that. But what I do know is that the tradition that we are talking about here, in a sense that the tradition that the Indic value system represents, actually envelops and encapsulates modernity in itself. So the tradition that we come from, the tradition that people who are living on this land come from, itself promotes modernity in the way we think. And I would like to illustrate it by one sukt. This sukt comes in Rig Veda, sukt 1.89. And the sukt goes on like this. Anu bhadra kratvo yantu vishvakaho daptaso. Which means that let noble thought come to you from all directions. And let there be no hindrance. Let there be nothing that can suppress them. So this is something which is deeply rooted in tradition, but it's telling you, it's encouraging you to let noble thoughts reach you from all directions. And it also encourages you to let go of all biases, everything that you come with, every training that you go through, to untrain, to unlearn, and make sure that your mind is completely unfettered and completely free, so that it can receive, so that it can take on. So this is the chain of tradition that we come from. Think of it as a river and not as a lake. A lake is something that remains static, that can only add knowledge, that can only lead to accumulation. But what does a river do? A river not just accumulates, but also flows. Flows through different sanstars of Sabhyata, flows through different sanstars of Kalkhand, and carries a lot of knowledge which is intertemporal from different time eras, which is inter-civilization from different civilization, and inter-religious, interfaith, intercommunal. So what we have done as a civilization, as a society, is that we have carried values from wave after wave of civilization, and we have become this grand river which now carries all the accumulated knowledge. Our fabric is such that even after waves of people came to us, it expanded, it did not break. Unlike a lot of other civilizations, some in the Semitic world, others in the Oriental world, which broke after an onslaught. We did not break even after onslaughts. We expanded our fabric. That's the flexibility that the Indian tradition holds, or as I like to call it, the Indic tradition. Because this tradition is not alien to the other countries of the subcontinent as well. They might not be religiously or politically with us anymore. But this is a fabric that extends from Atak to Kathak. This is a fabric that extends from Peshawar to Chittagong. There might be different manifestations today, but this is something that we carry very deeply in our hearts. So the first point that I wanted to put forward is that the tradition that we come from is not separate or isolated from modernity. That's number one. Number two, if you really want to be modern, the Vedas, the Upanishads, the Gitas are a very interesting way into developing yourself into someone who has a modern or an outward outlook. So what a human does is that he or she understands from the outside world, and that understanding that he or she gains from the outside world encourages him or her to look inwards as well. This outward-inward reflection that a human goes through is, I believe, the basic objective of life. It's also called Jnana Yoga, when you're trying to gather knowledge by looking outwards and reflecting inwards, and ultimately reaching a stage where you understand that we are on this planet to serve. There are people who will tell you that we are on this planet to love ourselves. There are people who will tell you that we are on this planet to care about success. There'll be people who will tell you that you are on this planet to excel. to do well in your profession. But the reality is that you're on this planet to be of service. The day you are born, without knowing, you have taken the service of a lot of people. Your mother, who has held you in her womb for 9 months. The society which came together to make sure that your mother had a comfortable childhood. And as they say in English, it takes an entire village to bring a child up. So the entire societal contribution which has gone in your upbringing goes very frequently, very often unnoticed. But the day we were born and while we were coming up, we have taken the service of a lot of people. And these are all people who have godliness within them. So to be able to serve this godliness, which is in others as well, is basic objective of life. If we understand this, then we can strike a perfect balance between tradition and modernity. Being traditional does not mean wearing a tilak, wearing a moli, wearing a janeu, wearing a mala. Being traditional means this. Now listen to it very carefully. This is something that I hold very close to my heart. It comes from an Upanishad which is called the Ishavasya Upanishad. It is a part of the Shukla Yajurveda and it has a beautiful line in it. And this is how the line goes. Ishavasyam idam sarvam yat kinchit jagatyan jagat ten tyakten bhunjita mah kridah
Kasyavid dhanam.
And it's a wonderful interpretation of this brief 2 lines of a wonderful poem, which is the Isha Upanishad. It says that this entire world, everything that we see around us, is encapsulated, is enveloped by the divine. The divine doesn't have a form. I'm not talking about Lord Rama or Lord Krishna or Lord Hanuman. What I'm saying is that this entire world, Jagatyan Jagat, everything that you can see and everything that is within what you cannot see. You can see me, I can see you, but I cannot see the cells within you. This poem says, this shloka says that godliness is within each and every cell, within each and every molecule, within each and every atom, within each and every subatomic particle. So when everything is encapsulated, enveloped by godliness, then who will you hate? Then who will you not like? As Krishna also says in Gita, if you see me within everyone, and if you see everyone within me, then I'm not invisible to you. That is why I want to tell you that being of service is the objective of life. This poem, Ishavasyam Sarvamidam, in the second line the poem says, Tena tyaktena bhunjitha. So the way to lead the life is a way of renunciation, tyag. And what money are you coveting? What treasure are you coveting? What treasure are you after? Because whose wealth is it anyway? If everything has God residing within itself, then whose treasure is it? I have godliness within me, you have godliness within me, so does this plant, so does this one, so does this mic. In physics, we say that the God particle is much talked about these days. We talk about Higgs boson, we talk about God's particle. But the philosophers, the poets who wrote the Yajurveda, the Shukla Yajurveda, the poets who wrote Isha Upanishad, they philosophized it much before. They said that everything has this God particle within it. And that's why your inner consciousness, which is also called Atman, and the cosmic consciousness, which is also called Brahma, are not different from each other. This is the basic difference between the Western, the Semitic thought, and the Indian thought. There is no distinction between the creator and the creation. In the Western thought, the creator is either the master or the father, the all-powerful father or the master. And the creation is subjugate to the father or to the creator. It's either the slave of the master or it's the child of the father. But in the Indian tradition, the creation and creator are not different from each other. We are saying that the same element which makes God God resides within us as well. Life should be a quest to find that essence within us. And the day we find this essence within us, will be of service to everyone. And what is modernity? Modernity is also to be able to be sensitive to each and everyone's need. And that's how we describe the modern world. When we were primitive, we were fighting wars with each other. When we were primitive, we were killing our fathers, our brothers, our sisters, our sons. But as we developed, as we became modern, we were on a quest to find out what the outside world holds for us and what we are inside. And what did it lead to? It led to long lasting peace. You might have seen the Indo Pakistan skirmish, which has happened recently. But if you think about the long period we have had of peace in the entire globe, then it is very different from the times that we were in during, let's say, the Stone Age or the Iron Age or the Bronze Age, when there was fighting every day. Fathers were killing their children, brothers were killing their brothers, sons were killing their fathers. All of this was happening. But today we are in a society where there are laws. There are laws because we want to ensure that everyone has some rights and we want to ensure that everyone realizes their duties. In a way, we want to ensure that everyone remains a free citizen in a free world, and the government of the day is sensitive to the needs of everyone who resides in a physical boundary. This is what modernity means. See, it's a personal wish. If you want, you can go to the temple every day. You can worship a physical god. But the tradition that Indic values are rooted in goes beyond that. See, when you feel that each and everyone has some godliness within them, then you won't confine yourself to a temple. You'll try and find God within each and everything that you see. So, if that's the feeling that you carry with you, then you are not modern. You are someone who understands what the Indian tradition holds, and you are someone who upholds the modern values of equality, of justice, of fraternity, of inclusivity, of universalization of services, which really need to be extended to everyone, be it healthcare, be it education, be it the right to a free and fair world, be it the right to trade, be it the right to do commerce, and be it the right to lead a dignified life. So this is circular in nature. Modernity and tradition, it is not a linear structure where you see tradition dating back to 3000, 4000 BC and you talk about modernity, then you're talking about 2025. That's not the case. There are primordial ideas, there are primordial thoughts, there are deep philosophical inquests which have happened 3000 years ago, which are still relevant today. And if we understand that feeling of service that our forefathers wanted to instill in us, then we'll be the most modern people in the world. So I don't know if it answers your question, but that's how I see tradition and modernity being interlinked with each other. I do not see them as separate. Having said so, there should be pride in one's past, but one should not live in his or her own past. There's a difference. Living in the past and having pride in the past are two different things. I started with Ano Bhadra Krato Yantu Vishwata. If you do not let other ideas from other parts of the world come to you, then you'll become what is called a living fossil. What is a fossil? A fossil is something which has no life in it per se, which is trapped between layers and layers. If you stay in your past, you will be trapped and burdened by your past. And that burdening, that weight the past puts on you will make you a fossil. Does a fossil grow? It doesn't. It can't because it doesn't have life. You want to become a tree. What does a tree look like?
Tree grows.
Tree grows, but tree grows because of two things. Because of the leaves that it has above the surface and because of the roots it has beneath the surface. It's a magical combination of modernity and tradition. Your roots are the tradition, which give you a solid grounding, which make sure that you do not lose yourself in the race to become modern. And the leaves are the carriers of modernity, of modern ideas, which make sure that you're looking outwards and growing. So imagine yourself and everyone as a tree which is deeply rooted, which is taking nutrition from everything that's below the surface, and which is also trying to take nutrition from the leaves which are above the surface. If we strike a balance between these two things, then I feel that we can lead a fulfilling life.
So, what I have concluded is that it's not about choosing traditional or modernity, it's about using tradition as foundation and modernity as a bridge to success for the future.
Wonderful. I think that's a brilliant dissection of this entire conversation, and you very succinctly but accurately put it into words. There's just one thing that I want to add, and that is the definition of success. Sometimes, what success entails for a lot of us is chasing after millions. I want to put forward an idea to you. What is more important, chasing millions of dollars or chasing a dream which can change a millions of lives?
Chasing a dream which can change millions of lives.
And that's what I believe success is. And that's how I want our students to be developed and nurtured. So that they become dreamers, they become aspirational, they become ambitious, but they're not chasing after millions of dollars. They are chasing after dreams which can change a million lives. There's a distinct difference between the two. And that difference in our perception of success is what defines us, as whether we are modern or we are someone who's stuck in the past. Now, these are not things that we did in the past. The kings did not fight for eternal success, but they fought for physical success. The scientists, on the other hand, made discoveries and did things which changed our lives forever. Now you have to decide, what do you want to become? Do you want to become a king who's after material success, who's after wealth, who's after possession? Or do you want to become a philosopher, a scientist, a professional, an innovator, an entrepreneur? But an entrepreneur who's not chasing millions of dollars, but whose ultimate goal is to change the millions of lives. If millions of dollars follow, that's another thing. But your basic aim was to change the millions of lives. And why is it more important for India than it is for others? It is more important for India because in India there are still 70 to 80 crore people who are getting 5 kg of ration every day, every month. I'm sure we all know about this scheme that the government of India has, where ration to almost 70, 80 crore people is being given for free, which means that there are still 70, 80 crore people in India out of the 145 crore people that there are who are somewhere near the poverty line. They are not below the poverty line, but they're just above. If on a given day the government decides to, withdraw this scheme, then they might fall under the poverty line. In a country which has this amount of poor people, chasing individual success is, in my opinion, nothing but vulgar. And this may come across as a very strong statement, but I have a very simple answer to it. See, the countries in the West, which have an established generational wealth, which have an established social structure, they can talk about these things. Things that your generation is talking about: self-love. It's important to love yourself. It's important to think about yourself. A country like India can't afford to do that. If you keep thinking about yourself, with the privilege that you have, you're studying in an English medium CBSE school. If you keep yourself limited to your own self, if you only think about yourself, if you only love yourself, then who'll think about the 70, 80 crore people who are near the poverty line or maybe below it? It is our duty. So for me, or for us Indians, success does not lie in chasing individual goals, but success lies in chasing goals which can change our individual lives, also can create some kind of net social positive change. I call it NPSC, net positive social change. If you are someone who's able to create a net positive social change, then I think you are someone who's successful. If you're not able to do that, if you're only after individual wealth, then I do not believe you are successful. At least in my eyes, you are not. There is a right enshrined within our constitution, and that is the right to a dignified life. Now, it's very important to understand what's a dignified life and what is a life that is full of vulgar and ostentatious display of wealth. A life that you're able to lead very fulfillingly is a dignified life. A dream that I should be able to drive a Maserati, that I should be able to cover the entire world in business class or in first class, that is not required for a dignified life. If you are able to make yourself happy, your family happy, and create a net social positive change, then you've led a fulfilling life, then you've led a dignified life. So in a country like ours, even if you want to become an entrepreneur, which is after the dream to change the millions of life, that dignity will follow.
So, sir, my question to you is what's the one tradition that you have chosen to preserve for this generation?
I believe I've already answered the question. The one tradition that I believe embodies every Indian value that has come into existence since time immemorial is the fact that our texts, our spiritual literature asks us to see godliness within everyone and understand that there is no difference between Atman and Brahman, that our inner consciousness is connected to the cosmic consciousness by the very fabric of its existence. It is the same inner material that I have, that the world, the universe, and the God has. This tradition, in turn, makes you very sensitive. अगर अनुष्का को ये लगेगा कि उसके भीतर जो है वही भव्या के भीतर है, वही गौरी मैम के भीतर है, वही अनुष्का के पेट के भीतर है, वही पेड़ों पौधों झरनों के भीतर है, तो अनुष्का सभी के लिए सेंसिटिव रहेगी। तो अनुष्का कभी भी किसी भी चीज को लेकर अपने मन में द्वेष नहीं रखेगी। तो अनुष्का सारी वो कोशिशें करेगी जिससे जगत्यान जगत में उन्नति हो। द वर्ल्ड दैट वी सी दैट हैज गति एंड द वर्ल्ड दैट वी कैन नॉट सी, गति के अंदर जो गति है, उस दुनिया के प्रति भी अनुष्का अगर सजग रहेगी, सतर्क रहेगी, अगर उसकी उन्नति के लिए काम करेगी, तो इससे बेहतर ट्रेडिशनल वैल्यू क्या हो सकती है। तो मेरे लिए ये एपिटोम है ट्रेडिशनल वैल्यू। अगर ये फीलिंग हम सब में है तो इंडियन ट्रेडिशन को फिर हम हमारे साथ कैरी कर रहे हैं। बाकी सबकी खुद की श्रद्धा पर है कि वो कितना पढ़ते हैं, कितना सीखते हैं, हाउ डीपर डू दे डेल्व इनटू द स्पिरिचुअल टेक्स्ट दैट वी पोजेस। बट आई थिंक दिस बेसिक वैल्यू अगर हम सब सीख लें, हम सब समझ लें, तो life will become easier.
Okay, so sir, do you think education is important to understand the true meaning of tradition or modernity?
Of course, I think education is the most important thing because unless you know the world around you, you will not be able to understand what resides within you. And education is a process of trying to understand the world that is outside. सिर्फ आत्मचिंतन से हम प्रबुद्ध नहीं बन सकते. See, and let's dissect what we study. We study physics. What is physics? Physics is a study of the physical laws that govern how elements of the universe interact with each other. We study biology. Biology is a study which tries to understand how living beings function and process. We study chemistry. Chemistry is the study of molecular interactions which take place in the physical world. All of this is important to understand our relation with the outside world. Who we are, where we came from, what forces does the outside world possess. Unless we have a very deep understanding of what's outside, we won't be able to look within. So we need to answer both our otherworldly and outworldly questions, as well as our inworldly quests, as well as our inworldly metaphysical quests. So just philosophizing about it is not important. Going through education is also important. What education also does is it tells you what you do not know. The more you know, the more you realize that you know nothing. And that's something that Socrates also was told by the Oracle of Delphi. I'm sure that you know about Socrates because in your school there is a house that's called the Socrates house. Because as you already know that Socrates existed in the ancient Greece. And the Oracle of Delphi was asked who's the most learned man in all of Greece, or maybe all of the known world. And the Oracle of Delphi said that it's Socrates. Socrates, not believing it himself, asked the Oracle, why do you think that I'm the most knowledgeable? I don't think I know anything. And the Oracle of Delphi said to this, you are the most knowledgeable because you're aware that you're not knowledgeable, because you know that you know nothing. That is why education is important. It makes you humble. Vidya dadati vinayam. हम जितनी विद्या अर्जित करेंगे, जितनी विद्या ग्रहण करेंगे, हम उतना ये समझेंगे कि हम कुछ नहीं जानते, हमारा ज्ञान अल्प है. जो सबसे ज्यादा विद्या का बखान करते हैं, जो सबसे ज्यादा पोस्ट करते हैं, वो सबसे ज्यादा अल्प ज्ञानी. जो जितना पढ़ते हैं, जितना अध्ययन करते हैं, जितना ग्रहण करते हैं, वो उतना ही इस बात को समझ जाते हैं कि हम बहुत कम जानते हैं, हमारा ज्ञान बहुत सीमित है और इस ब्रह्मांड के पास असीमित ज्ञान है. सो एजुकेशन इज वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट टू मेक यू हम्बल. And humility is very important to lead a fulfilling life. Because unless you are humble, you won't be receptive. If you're not receptive, you're not going to grow. If you're not going to grow, what are you going to become?
Fossil.
A fossil. So, to make sure that you do not become a fossil, you need to educate yourself. If you're not educating yourself, you're limiting your options for growth. So, as important as it is to meditate, to look inwards, it is also equally important to educate yourself and to know about the outside world. And again, this is also something that modernity is very much linked to, or even tradition is very much linked to. Because if you're not educating yourself, there are ideas which might not come to you. See, everyone is very different from each other. We have very different capabilities and capacity. We might not be able to ideate something that we have not heard before. So, to get all of the cumulative knowledge that humanity has to offer should be our ambition. Of course, no one can know everything. Even artificial intelligence cannot know everything. But our quest should be such that within the time that this nature has given us, whatever years the nature has given us, we spend most of them trying to learn something new about ourselves and about the world.
Okay, so further in the field of education, do you believe that National Education Policy NEP 2020 blends skill development with value based learning in schools?
So that's a very interesting question. I believe that NEP is a very noble effort to make sure that the way we have been teaching changes. But please don't get me wrong, and I don't mean to offend academicians and educationists who might be listening to this. A national education policy can give you a guideline, it can serve as a guiding light. But schools, colleges, and places of education need to evolve by themselves, need to ideate by themselves. NEP is a good guideline. And when we talk about skill and value based education, it's of course the need of the hour. Because we are talking about a future where things which are replicable, things which can be reproduced, these things or these jobs or these tasks will be taken up by artificial intelligence. So, unless you develop specific skills, you are going to become redundant in the future job market. So, that's why NEP introducing skill education is very important because you have to be the jack of all trades. If you're not learning new skills, then very soon you're going to become redundant. For example, most of the coding that is replicable, that can be reproduced, that is being done in a matter of fact way, is currently now being done by artificial intelligence. Most of the computational things have been done by computers for the last 20-25 years. Presentations are being made by AI. A lot of things are being done by machines now. So how do humans stay relevant in the future? The humans stay relevant, one, by learning actually how AI functions, and two, by learning skills on which they can apply a top layer of artificial intelligence. For example, radiology is a field which is going to be replaced by machines very soon. But if, as a doctor, as a radiologist, you gather the skill on how to make sure that you get the best out of AI, then you keep yourself relevant for the next 20, 25, 50 years to come. Same the thing with school education. Because in school, we are creating the base which is required for a student to excel in higher education. This base has to be such that it opens the brain of the student to multiple new skills and multiple new ideas. So, in that direction, it's a brilliant effort, it's a brilliant thought put in by the NEP. But I believe the action has to be taken by individual schools, by individual learners, and by individual centers of learning so that this can be actually executed on paper. Now, let's, for an example, talk about the skill that you are gathering. You are interviewing someone brimming with confidence, with good command over the language, and with a clarity in thought as to what you want to ask. This is something that schools 20 years ago were not doing. I'm glad that Gyan Vihar is doing it. But schools 20, 25 years ago, even 10 years ago, and most of the schools even now are not doing it. Now, this is a skill that you are gaining. No one knows what the future holds for you. I don't know what you're going to become. I'm sure you also don't know at this point of time what you want to become. You must have dreams and ambitions. but no one knows what they're going to pick up. But the skill that you've gained in trying to communicate, in becoming a good communicator, in trying to converse, becoming a good conversation holder, you are making sure that you have another feather in your cap, another arrow in your quiver, so that when it comes to choosing people and you have your competition with someone else, you already have an edge. So that's why skill education is important. Value education is important because, see, if education is not nurturing or nourishing a well rounded individual who also has a very ethical base, then it is not doing anything at all. Osama bin Laden was also an engineer. I'm sure you know that. A lot of people who have done a lot of bad things have been consummate professionals. They've had proper professional and vocational training. But what they've not had is a value based system, is a value based internal thinking system which tells them what is right and what is wrong. So, from a very young age, it is very important that students are rooted in ethics, they are rooted in values, and they are able to distinguish between what is right and what is wrong. Again, my problem here is that NEP alone will not be able to do it. Value education and values inherently can only be inculcated or ingrained within oneself when parents and teachers make sure that they are setting an example. Someone very recently told me, someone who's very well known, who's a national figure, I'm not going to name him, but he very recently told me कि धर्म या धार्मिक आचरण या धर्म सम्मत आचरण लोगों में फैलाना तभी पॉसिबल है जब हम एग्जाम्पल सेट करें, क्योंकि धर्म और धार्मिक आचरण अनुकरण किया जाता है, उसका अनुसरण किया जाता है. सो अनलेस यू आर एबल टू reflect values as teachers, as parents, your students are not going to take them. For example, let's say your teacher is telling you to wear a helmet and you see your teacher not wearing a helmet on a traffic sign. What will you think about first the teacher and second about the value that he's or she is trying to impart? If a teacher or your parent tells you that taking or giving bribe is wrong, and if you see your own father who works in a government service buying you an expensive car on, let's say, your 15th birthday, you will question yourself where he or she got the money from. And then the value that they're trying to instill in you of being honest, of not taking money to do what's your duty, is not going to take a hold over you. So skills are important, and it's up to centers of learning to impart skills. Values are yet more important, and here all the stakeholders come in, not just the school. Like skill is something that schools can definitely impart, but values are something, unless they have a complete concurrence at home, in society, and in the school, they will not make a lasting impression on you. मैंने अभी आपको बहुत सारी बातें कही, शायद हमें बात करते हुए आधा घंटा हो गया. But if you see the exact opposite thing happening in the outside world, more importantly, if you see me doing the exact opposite thing, everything that I'm trying to tell you will go for a toss. So values are only as important as the person who's trying to set an example through them. If the person loses his or her ground, the person a child wants to emulate, a person that a child wants to become like, then the values won't take a hold in the child.
Okay, sir. On that, students, they face difficulties in school and at home. At home, regarding the stream that they should choose, because traditionally science is considered to be the best stream out of all three. And in school, because teachers see academics as absolute standard for success or anything. So, how can we balance traditional focus on academics and learning with the Gen Z's and Alpha's desire for holistic growth, multitasking, or active involvement in extracurricular activities?
See, as I said, teachers, academicians, parents have to understand that the time of linear learning is over. Today, if you want to make sure that your child leads a fulfilling life, he or she has to be encouraged to move in a direction where interdisciplinary and transdisciplinary learning can take place. Because if you want to make your child build a future in a traditional mold, then that mold has already been broken by the technology of the future. anything that you deem traditional is being done by robots, like 90% of those things are being done by robots. And in next 10 years, 100% of those things will be done by robots. Then how do you stay relevant? You stay relevant by being interdisciplinary and transdisciplinary. You stay relevant by gaining other skills. Like you're trying to gain communication. Someone can gain music as a skill, other one can gain literature as a skill. It's important for parents, for schools, for teachers to understand that simply putting people into brackets of science, commerce, and humanities is not going to suffice. It is very important that students are now trained in a way that interdisciplinary and transdisciplinary learning is encouraged. About 7, 8 years ago, I came up with an idea called Prakshepan, where I wanted to introduce experiential learning modules into school, which can lead to interdisciplinary learning. For example, the way that I'm talking to you doesn't only involve a biological process of you listening to me, but also involves a very physical process of me creating a sound wave. That sound wave is traveling from my mouth to your ear, to your outer ear. And there is physics, biology, and chemistry involved in me being able to speak and you being able to understand. But how we are taught? We'll either be taught in biology, how you speak or how you hear, or we'll be taught in physics, how a sound wave travels or how it's a longitudinal wave and not a transverse wave. The fact of the matter remains that while I talk to you, the longitudinal wave is also doing its thing. Your outer ear, your middle ear, and your inner ear are also active. Your auditory nerve is also active. And unless there is a cationic and anionic balance in your body, your auditory nerve won't be able to transfer the impulse or the signal. So there is physics, chemistry, and biology in the way that I'm talking to you. We are not taught this way in schools, but we have to be taught in this way because this is the way the world now wants you to look at things. If you look at things purely from a point of view of physics, purely from a point of view of history, purely from a point of view of chemistry, then I'm sorry, you are not prepared for the future. I'll give you another example. And this example will seem completely historical in nature, but it is not. Numismatics, philately, all the studies which go on to discover how, in case of coins, how the coins have traveled from, let's say, the shells that we had to the coins that we have in the present. Now, it might seem completely historical to you, this study, but I'm sorry, it's not. We discovered alloys. We understood how to make alloys. Before that, we discovered ores. We discovered a process how to purify it. Now, you might look at it purely from a historical point of view, but there is an entire chemical history behind it. There is an entire economics behind it. Why was silver important during the Middle Ages and why is gold now? Might seem like a historical question. It is not. It is based on the economic law of demand and supply. There was a lot of silver that was mined. Because silver supply became much more, gold became the more important metal. Now, these are things that when you study them as per the traditional school mold in a very isolated manner. But these are the things that need to change. And this is where I'm addressing the teachers. Unless you make sure for alphas and for betas that they get a school experience which is much greater than what GPT can give them, they're not going to listen to you. Then they're going to listen to GPT and Gemini. Because the transactional nature of knowledge that a traditional school or a traditional teacher aspires to give is existing there in AI also. Gemini can do that, GPT can do that. What can a teacher do? A teacher can create an experience that AI cannot till now. Because AI cannot make you feel. AI cannot engage all your senses. Might be able to engage your visual senses, but a teacher can engage all of your senses. A teacher is aware of himself, herself, and your inner being. That awareness is not within AI. An AI doesn't know what your dreams are. An AI doesn't know how you behave. A teacher does. So unless a teacher curates an experience for you to learn from, he or she is not doing his or her job, which can make you prepared for the future. So this is the need of the hour for schools, for teachers, for academicians, for educationists to understand that now is the time that we curate experiences for our students, where we engage all their senses, where we do not put them into brackets and slots, where we encourage interdisciplinary learning, where we encourage personality grooming, where we encourage extracurricular activities. Because if your child is not the jack of all trades, if he just knows one thing, then I'm sorry, he or she is not going to remain relevant.
Matlab, like we must have a holistic approach
Of
to
course,
everything.
of course. A complete 360-degree view of education is important. See, in the formative years, of course, you have to be taught in a very methodical way. Like I cannot say these things to a 4-year-old or a 5-year-old. They have to be brought up with a certain curriculum in place in a fixed and a decided manner. I am talking about the adolescents. I'm talking about students who are 14 to 18 years of age, who have now built a base and they are now ready to explore the world. For them, this kind of teaching is very important.
So, what role does traditional Indian philosophies like Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, Karma or Dharma play in shaping modern leadership or workplace ethics?
Okay, another very good question. So, if we talk about the Indian way of thinking about things and to lead a fulfilling life, then they talk about multiple ways. So, see, the first thing is that unlike Semitic religions, Indic religions do not prescribe one perfect way to lead a fulfilling life. They talk about multiple ways. So, within one tradition, you'll find people who will say that Gyan Yoga is the best. What is Gyan Yoga? Trying to gather as much knowledge as you can to reach to the final understanding that what's within you is within others. To reach the final understanding that knowledge can lead to liberation. That process is called Jnana Yoga. Then there is something called the Bhakti Yoga, which is do not do anything. Just surrender yourself to the God. You must have heard of the Hare Krishna movement. So that's a Bhakti Yoga oriented movement where your scriptures are telling you you don't need to anything. Just surrender each and everything to God. Just rely on God for each and everything. And what you do is only express your love for God and His creation. Then there is Karma Yoga, which says no, if you don't want to go to the caves, if you don't want to spend all your life reading, then do what's right. Do your righteous karma. Do the karma that is defined by dharma. And karma which is detached, anasakt karma. ऐसा कर्म जिसके फल की चिंता हमें ना हो. And without thinking about the result, we are doing because we know that it's ours to do by duty. हमारी ड्यूटी है, हमारा दायित्व है वो कर्म करने का, इसलिए हम उस कर्म को कर रहे हैं. इसलिए नहीं क्योंकि हमें किसी फल की लालसा है, इसलिए नहीं कि हमें किसी मटेरियल पोजेशन की लालसा है, इसलिए नहीं कि हमारी आसक्ति किसी न किसी धन या संपत्ति में है, इसलिए क्योंकि ये हमारा दायित्व है, क्योंकि यही हमारे जीवन का उद्देश्य है. इस सोच के साथ ऐसा कर्म करना जिससे लोगों का जीवन बेहतर हो सके. तो अब ये 3 बहुत अलग अलग तरीके हैं, बट इन तीनों तरीकों से we can reach the ultimate goal. And the ultimate goal is to realize that knowledge liberates and that our life and its purpose is to be of service to others and to make their lives a better place to live in. So, I think there are multiple ways in which a life can be led. I think if you are deeply rooted in Indic traditions and also try to know about the outside world through the Western knowledge that has come to you, you can strike a good balance between the two and lead a life where you are aware, where you are ever growing, but also equally sensitive.
This was the podcast with our esteemed director, Sir. I hope you found it quite informative. Stay tuned.